Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining me. I'm here to talk a little bit about Secure Act 2.0. Whether you were on our recent webinar and saw me run out of time, or you're interested in some of the provisions of this big act, we're here today to talk about it. So what is it? Well, the Secure Act 2.0 is the second version of Secure Act, setting every community up for retirement enhancement. And it was part of the Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2023, which was signed into law by President Biden on December 29th of 2022. And the bill was over 4,000 pages, and Secure Act was part of it. And so I'm grateful to others who have read through all of it and provided us with over 100 changes that could be affecting us, you, loved ones that you know. And so today we're talking about some of the heaviest hitters, some of the ones that we think will affect the most people and we want people to know about as soon as possible. So the first one here is that required minimum distributions, which are distributions you start being required to take annually from any retirement account, have been delayed again. And so you may recall that a few years ago, the required minimum distribution start age was the year you turned 70 and a half, and that was delayed to the year you turned 72. And so anyone who has already started required minimum distributions and turned 72 before the beginning of 2023, there is no change for you. Your RMDs will stay the same. But if you turn 72 this year in 2023 and you were planning to take your first RMD this year, you got a nice gift from the government, happy birthday gift, that you do not have to take your first RMD this year and you instead have to take it next year when you turn 73. So the RMD age is now 73 going forward. And then in 2033, it will be delayed again to age 75. And so you can see here, the image on our screen based on your birth year is when your required minimum distribution start age is. So if you were in that group turning 72 this year and now your first required minimum distribution will be delayed to 73, we will be reaching out to you just to confirm, and then we can plan together next year for that first RMD. Catch-up contributions. So if you've ever made a contribution to an IRA, if you're over the age of 50, you probably know about catch-up contributions. And that catch-up contribution for IRAs has been stuck at $1,000 for a long time. So starting next year, it will be indexed for inflation, meaning it will go up just like the annual contributions to 401ks, catch-up contributions to 401ks are going up with inflation each year. This $1,000 IRA catch-up contribution will do the same. Similarly, a new rule for some 401k catch-up contributions, but for a very small window of people. Anyone turning 60, 61, 62, or 63 in any given year will now be allowed to make a catch-up contribution, which again is for if you're over age 50, and it's in addition to the minimum or the maximum contribution that everyone can make to these 401k accounts or similar employer retirement plans. So if you turn 60 to 63 in that specific year, your catch-up contribution amount will be the greater of $10,000 or 150% of the current catch-up contribution. So if we look at 2023 as an example, the contribution would be the greater of $10,000 or 150% of $7,500, which is $11,250. So someone turning 60, 61, 62, or 63 this year would be able to make the maximum contribution to the 401k plus $11,250 as the catch-up contribution. So really, it's just providing a way for people who are getting closer to retirement to supercharge some of their late career stage contributions. Roth was the name of the game with Secure Act 2.0. A lot of changes having to do with Roth. So a couple things that are in play right now that are effective now. There are now Roth Simple IRAs and Roth SEP IRAs as an option. So if you are a self-employed individual and you have a Simple IRA or a SEP IRA, you are also now able to open a Roth Simple IRA or Roth SEP IRA. And just to revisit, Roth contributions and Roth accounts they grow tax-free. So any money that you put into a Roth is after-tax money, and then it grows tax-free forever. So you get no tax deduction in the current year when you make that contribution, unlike a 401k, where if you make a traditional contribution, your income is reduced. Not with the Roth, it's after-tax money. But the big benefit of a Roth account is that that money then grows tax-free forever, even when you take it out. So when you spend from a Roth account in retirement, the contributions and the earnings on those contributions are tax-free to you. Additionally, employers can now choose to make their matching contributions to employee retirement contributions into the Roth portion of the employee retirement account. Now, if you recall, I just said that Roth money has to be after tax. So if an employee chooses to have a Roth matching contribution, that matching contribution will be taxable income to them, so that the money going into the Roth portion of that account will be after tax money. Starting next year, a few more changes that apply to Roth accounts. So there will no longer be any required minimum distributions from Roth employer retirement accounts. Now, previously, whether you had Roth and traditional or just Roth or just traditional in an employer retirement account, you had to start taking RMDs at that RMD start age. Now, you could avoid this previously by rolling the Roth portion of your 401k into a Roth IRA, because Roth IRAs do not have RMDs. Now we'll just remove that need. There will be no RMDs from Roth employer retirement accounts. Let that money grow tax-free a little longer for you. If you earn more than $145,000 in a year, or for anyone who does, and you are making catch-up contributions to an employer account, you will be required to make those catch-up contributions. So again, not the base portion, just the catch-up if you're over 50, to the Roth portion of your employer retirement account. And there's a new thing coming up, 529 to Roth IRA transfers. Now, this is something that has some nuance to it, some rules and some numbers that I will share with you, but it's a new option, and it's not for getting through any sort of backdoor way to put money into a Roth IRA quickly. It's for really intended for if there's too much money in a 529 and you want to get it into Roth. And so some of those nuances here. First is the 529 must have existed for at least 15 years. So it can't be a new account. You can't open an account, put money in it, get it over to a Roth. The account has to have been in existence for 15 years or more. And any contributions that are eligible for this rollover must have been in the account for over 5 years. So again, it's not a loophole to get money into Roth. It is really intended for extra money that it may be sitting in a 529. And the Roth IRA to which the money goes has to be in the name of the beneficiary of the 529. So one of the things that remains unclear is whether changing the beneficiary on a 529, which is very easy to do, by the way, if you need to use 529 funds for a sibling, maybe one sibling didn't use all of theirs, the younger sibling needs more money for their education, you can change the beneficiary and use leftover money. But what remains to be clarified is whether that would constitute the restart of that 15-year clock. If having a new beneficiary would mean it's a new account and a new 15-year clock. And so if you meet all of these requirements, the amount that can be transferred between or from the 529 to the Roth IRA in any 1 year is the IRA contribution limit. So that's $6,500 this year. And you can only do a lifetime maximum of $35,000. So those are the rules around this 529 to Roth IRA transfers. Again, that possibility does not start until next year. So I imagine we will see some clarification on the 15-year clock and get clarity on exactly who will qualify for this if it is a possibility for them. Next, a big change that we are certainly in favor of, automatic enrollment. So beginning in 2025, any new 401k plans that employers are putting into place will require auto enrollment for all participants. And that initial auto enrollment will be at least 3% of income and can be up to 10% at the employer's discretion. And it must automatically increase 1% every year until it reaches 10% of income. Now, one thing to make clear is that this is not a requirement. It's not something that someone will be forced into doing. They can certainly opt out when they start working with a new employer that has an auto enrollment plan. But there is research into the participation rates when something is provided as an opt-out versus an opt-in. And the one I'm most familiar with has to do with organ donation. Very similar cultural countries. One had an opt-out, one had an opt-in, and the opt-out country had much higher organ donation rates because it's much easier to do something that maybe you feel is right or you know is right or that you want to do when it's already set up for you and you don't have to actually put any effort into going into doing that. Similar to saving to your employer retirement account, oftentimes there is a match. You know, it's free money if you're taking advantage of that, and it can be really easy to just have that automatically as part of your paycheck when it's set up for you and you don't have to log in and say, yes, I actually want to contribute X% of my income. So we really are in favor of this change. I think it's a great way to get people in our country saving more and taking advantage of the wonderful benefit that employer retirement plans are. Next, missed RMD penalty. So required minimum distributions, after you hit that RMD age, they are required every year. And we take care of those for all of our clients. We generally process them in the first quarter of the year. We'll reach out when we've done so. If there are nuances or you want yours distributed monthly, we talk about that, we plan for it. And we just make sure that that is always taken care of for the accounts that we help you with every year. But sometimes things happen. Maybe you have another account somewhere you completely forgot about and didn't realize you have an RMD to take, or someone didn't take care of it in time who you had asked to do so, or accounts were in transition and you just lost track and thought maybe you had taken RMD, found out later you hadn't. Previously, the penalty was 50% of the RMD amount. So when you got to the next year, when you realized the mistake, you had to actually take the required minimum distribution, all as taxable income, and you had to pay 50% of that RMD amount as a tax. as a penalty tax. So let's say your RMD was $2,000, you automatically had a $1,000 tax bill from that missed RMD. Well, that penalty has been reduced to only 25% of the missed RMD and further reduced to only 10% of the missed RMD if you correct it within the correction window. So you may be sensing a theme. We are expecting more clarification on what that correction window is. We don't actually know what the timing is. Is it 30 days from when you find it? Is it 30 days from the miss? Is it 6 months? Is it a year? We have no idea. And we'll be expecting clarification on what that correction window is that would allow for only the 10% penalty. And finally, a benefit for spouses, just a new rule when inheriting IRAs from a deceased spouse. The surviving spouse can elect to be treated as that decedent for RMD purposes. So this would often come up and make sense where perhaps the deceased spouse was much younger, even a little bit younger, and the surviving spouse can choose to be treated as that spouse for RMD purposes. So they can wait till that spouse would have been 73 or 75, whatever their appropriate RMD age is based on the new laws and new changes, to start taking RMDs from that IRA that they inherit from their spouse. So these are a few of what we think are the heaviest hitter changes that came in Secure Act 2.0. As I mentioned on the webinar, and hopefully you've seen, I did write a piece in our the Live Big Way digest about this with some more details and some links to resources. And I will be writing another piece on some of the more nuanced pieces. Like I said, there are over 100 changes in Secure Act 2.0. And so, but some of them are very narrow in who they apply to. So we'll be writing and sharing some more details in case something applies to you and you want to read more about it and talk about it. And as always, please always reach out to us. Any questions you have, we'll be reaching out if something affects you directly, and we'll talk. Thanks.